So I finally did it. I finally played Dark Souls 2. I completed the entire trilogy of Dark Souls. Boy, was it rough. Dark Souls 2 is known as a hot debate between some calling it the worst Souls game, which are probably the same people that never played Demon Souls. And then there are some other people that call it an amazing game. Like I have a friend of me saying that Dark Souls 2 is his favorite game. And I guess it's debatable, you know, some people play Dark Souls 2 as their first game and they call it their favorite game, just like how I played Dark Souls 3 as my first Souls game and I would defend it up until now, calling it the best Souls game. Now that I played Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3, is Dark Souls 2 indeed an amazing game like some people call it, or does it suck? Now, it's a very complicated debate, because all of these three games, they have things that they do very well, and then they have other things that do very, very bad. And I would just point out right now, the base game of Dark Souls 2, I actually quite enjoyed it. Yeah. Despite Dark Souls 2 being a very super long game, I really enjoyed it. We're gonna talk about the DLC later because that's a whole different story, but the base game of Dark Souls 2, that was quite enjoyable. But let's go more into detail. Where do I even begin with Dark Souls 2? The game has a lot of hits and misses, but like I said earlier, that's to be said for all of Miyazaki creations, even though Dark Souls 2 was barely created by him. There will be times I would hate the game. I know I said I love the game, but there would be times I would despise the game and I would start comparing it to other Souls game in the series. And there will be times I would have post-death clarity and I would notice the flaws in the other games and I would actually enjoy Dark Souls 2 for what it is and what it's trying to do. For example, Dark Souls 2 has one of the best hubs in the entire trilogy. Majula, majestic. I remember the first time I arrived in Majula and I was mesmerized. The sunset, the sound of the waves in the sea, and the music. Man, that is really a vibe. I could just stay here all day long and relax and chill. I would call my homies and be like, yo, let's go to Majula and let's vibe over there. And they'll be like, bet. It makes you forget about all the misery and bullshit you have to deal with in your adventure in Follows, which is great. A game needs that for when, you know, shit's about to go down. But anyways, I kind of want to talk about the exploration in Dark Souls. Let's kind of compare it with all the other games, alright? Because we don't want to be out there saying Dark Souls 2 is better without saying what works well in other games and what works less in the three of the games. We can already take Dark Souls 3 out of the equation with the exploration because, you know, Dark Souls 3 has probably one of the most bland exploration of all three. Sure, if it's your first time playing around, you're probably gonna get lost out there because you don't know where to go, but once you find your way out, you kind of have like a very linear progression. In Dark Souls 2, when you arrive at Majula, there's so many possibilities. You can go to the Forest of Fallen Giants, you can go to Heidi's Nuts Tower of Flame, you can go to Shaded Woods, or you can even go to the gutter. And that alone gives you that feeling that you're in adventure, you're lost, you don't know where to go. So, hey, let's just take a path and let's hope I won't get obliterated over 20 times before I notice that I shouldn't be here just yet. It's kind of a bummer, though, that there's no interconnectivity in the world design of Dark Souls 2. Sure, you have different paths to follow, but it's pretty much just one straight following path. There's no really that sense of when you take a shortcut, you notice, oh, that takes me back over in Majula. But it's still pretty good in terms of getting lost, not knowing where to go next. And Dark Souls 2 has a lot of backtracking. That is also one of the things that really makes you lost in the game. I'm not gonna lie, I had to really look up sometimes some guides on the internet to know where to go next because there is a lot of backtracking in Dark Souls 2. It's kind of insane and the game doesn't really give you any ideas where to go next. Or maybe it does, but I'm half paying attention to what people are saying with their very intricate messaging in the game because let's be honest, when do you ever understand what they're yapping about in Dark Souls?
A tarnished, eh? Although be it for the mimsy broves outgrave.
So yeah, exploration in Dark Souls 2 is not that bad. It's not the worst out there, that's for sure. It's also not that much of a pain in the ass compared to Dark Souls 1 because straight off the bat when you start the game you can teleport anywhere you want with the bonfires. And in terms of runbacks in Dark Souls 2, it's not that bad as in comparison to the DLCs. Once again, we'll get back to the DLCs after I talk about the main game, alright? Because I have a lot of complaints about the DLCs. You better be ready for that, okay? But in terms of bonfire, Dark Souls 2 does a great job to giving you teleportations right off the bat compared to Dark Souls 1. Because, you know, if you guys remember Dark Souls 1, you don't get teleportation right away. And also, if you forget to rest a specific bonfire and you die, you're gonna start way back amigos. So you have to run back even further ahead if you forget to do that. So yeah, that's annoying, especially when you come from Dark Souls 2 or Dark Souls 3 to Dark Souls 1 and you're not used to resting at every bonfire you find after activating it. Exploration aside, let's talk about what the people actually care about, which is the gameplay. You know, because that's what people shit on Dark Souls 2, the gameplay. People also praise it for being the one with the best PvP. I never tried PvP that much. I mean, I did have some accidents during PvP, but I didn't really focus too much on PvP to actually know if that's true. But that's what people say. How? How did he? How do you mean? Oh my god. Let's just pretend that this did not happen. I just lost 30k souls, by the way. Despite people shitting about it, I'm not gonna lie that Dark Souls 2 has the most build varieties. You can go power stancing Dark Souls 2. It was such an upgrade from the first game, and you could dual wield all types of weapons. I don't know why they got rid of power stancing in Dark Souls 3. I mean, they gave us dual weapons like the dual scimitar or whatever, but there is not a lot of weapons that you can dual wield in Dark Souls 3. I don't know why they got rid of that. That's one thing that FromSoft does. They fix something and then they don't carry it over into the next game. Like, don't fix what ain't broken, FromSoft, but that's just a normal tendency with FromSoft, not gonna lie. The combat is also smoother, but also clunky sometimes, especially early on when you have a low ADP. That is another complaint I have. ADP. What's low ADP, you may ask? Well, let me tell you about the most stupid, idiotic, shitty gameplay mechanic that was ever implemented in this game. Adaptability frames. An attribute that increases your iframes when you roll. That's right. You spend your souls in a skill that increases your iframes. So in other words, very early on, you end up wasting so many level ups and souls just so that you can have normal iframes in Dark Souls. And then the best part of it all, because Dark Souls has the tendency to never explain you those things, they never really explain you what adaptability is for. You have the ADP skill right there, but you never know what it's for. And the only explanation you get when you go onto the help section, it says, raises various attributes to ensure one survival, boosts agility and varies resistance. What am I supposed to get off that? Nothing. Nada. If it wasn't from Twitch chat to helping me with that, I would have never known probably. And further proof is how my friend, Sinhumb, he never knew about adaptability, so he just played the game without leveling up ADP. So that's further proof how ADP was a very badly implemented thing in the game. I also used to shit on the enemies always ganking up on you on Dark Souls 2, but I'm not gonna talk shit about it anymore. I mean, it kind of makes sense. You have soldiers trying to protect the place, so of course they're gonna put all of their armies all over the place, and so they're ready for you ass when you come into a room. They're in every corner. But the one thing I really despise though, but I guess it makes sense because it's realistic, is when you're opening doors or passing through fog walls, they can attack you. Sometimes you just want to run away from these enemies, you know, because you're sick and tired of trying to kill them. And you just want to go to the boss fight, you know? But no, the enemies will attack you while you're opening doors and walking through fog walls. Just let me go through, man. Just give me iframes, alright? I swear, the person that came up with that idea, I hope your socks get wet. Because I just want to go to the boss fight, right? I already spent 20 minutes of my life trying to fight these guys, and I just can't deal with them anymore. I don't have all the time of my life, right? Our time is very limited on this earth. This is getting very deep, but sometimes I just want to get onto business and kill the boss fight. Alright, just let me do that. Thank you very much. And that's where the DLC comes in. Okay. Okay, now we're getting to the juicy part of it all. People say the DLC is supposed to be better, and yeah, there are some parts of the DLC I really liked. Okay, this is the path that the DLCs follows. There's 3 DLCs, and the 3 DLCs early on, they're good. I have nothing wrong against them. The enemies are good, the areas are amazing, but After a certain point, when you kill the main boss of the DLC, you have a second part that you can follow in those 3 DLCs. And that's where it gets to shit. The runbacks is hell. I'm not even gonna get started with the freaking frozen area where you have this whole mist on your ass and there's random ass reindeer spawning out of nowhere and attacking you and you have to try and figure out where the boss is. I'm just getting mad talking about this. The DLCs were such a pain in the ass that I had to give up. I have 1 boss remaining. That's right, there's 1 more boss I have to fight, and I just couldn't be bothered to try and fight him because I was getting so mad and so stressed that I needed to take a chill pill. I just had to log off, and I was just like, I'm done with this shit, okay? God, man. And that's what I mean with runbacks. And not being able to have iframes when going through fog walls, because that's the worst part. You try to run away from these enemies, sometimes it works out, and then you walk past the fog wall, and bada bing, bada boom, those 10 enemies you'll run away from, they catch up to you, and they all do you a blow, and then you're dead. And then, time to start over again. Man, I'm so glad I'm done with those DLCs. Gosh, I'm never playing the DLCs again. Dark Souls 2 is a great game. I said it, alright? It has its flaws. There were moments I was really mad at the game. And there are some parts that the game tries way too much. I appreciate the hustle, you know? But sometimes it feels too freaking long. The bosses are like kind of shit. But then, here's the thing, guys. Dark Souls 1 is shorter compared to Dark Souls 2. But even Dark Souls 1 has shit bosses, okay? So if you're gonna say that Dark Souls 2 is bad because the bosses are bad, well, get your eyes checked and play Dark Souls 1 because Dark Souls 1 has a lot of shit bosses, okay? And Dark Souls 1 is the one game with Bed of Chaos, alright? So that makes it already one of the worst bosses in existence. Dark Souls 2 also has shit bosses, so does Elden Ring. Every FromSoft game has shit bosses, and every FromSoft game has like shit factors. For example, Dark Souls 3 doesn't have points. Dark Souls 3 areas kind of suck in comparison to Dark Souls 2 and 1. Like, I don't really like the level designs in Dark Souls 3. The point of the story I'm trying to make here, because I finally played the 3 of them, is that there is no perfect FromSoft game. And still, we all love them for the clunky games they are, for the shit games they are. And I'll say it again, Dark Souls 2 is better than Dark Souls 1. I said it, and I will say it again, but there's no point because you heard me, right? This is the worst freaking area of all Dark Souls games. Can't see shit, there's no bonfires, you have to run all the way back in a place you can't see nothing. Or is the freaking deer spawning non-stop? Come at you at full speed? What were they thinking? See that? Look at this. Oh, it just came out of nowhere. Just out of nowhere. Oh, okay, I'm done. I am done.